73% of secret shoppers said they would not recommend the firms they contacted, which goes right back to your initial point, which is to say negative word of mouth is devastating, and it is always invisible because it's measured in the times the phone did not ring.
73%. An industry that has 73% of people saying they wouldn't recommend the firms. That's a crisis. That's not a number to skip over.
The segment for today, firms that resist technology aren't just falling behind, they're locking themselves into a cost structure that simply can't compete. Today, we're talking about how to spot that shift before it's too late. In 2004, Blockbuster employed 84,000 people, operating over 9,000 locations worldwide, and generated more than $6 billion in revenue. Now, 6 years later, they filed for bankruptcy with $1 billion in debt. Now, Dish Network bought their remains for only $320 million, about 5 cents on the dollar of what they were worth at their peak. The conventional wisdom is that streaming killed Blockbuster, but not directly. What killed them was a cost structure that couldn't compete with the market, and by the time they noticed, it was simply too late. You see, Blockbuster earned $800 million a year, 16% of their total revenue, from late fees alone. Netflix built its entire value proposition around eliminating that one charge. And Blockbuster was so dependent on the revenue from annoying their own customers that they couldn't adapt without destroying their own business model. When they finally tried the Total Access program in 2007, they were losing $2 on every DVD rented. The overhead of 9,000 physical locations made the math impossible, and they paid the price. Netflix had none of that baggage.
I remember one of the things about Netflix, right, was that you could just keep the DVD forever.
Yeah.
They didn't
when
care.
They were in the mail. When they were in the mail before they went streaming, because they weren't a streaming platform.
That's what it was, right? When they were in the mail, and you could just keep it forever. They didn't care. They didn't have to send you another one, right? So there were no late fees. There were no anything. Sometimes I would keep a DVD for, a month because I wanted to show it to somebody else. So, yeah, Blockbuster.
Blockbuster, and it's so funny because the founders of Netflix did an interview on with Acquisition. I think it was like a VC podcast, and they talked about how they were in a garage, like scraping together movies from their friends and families to send out to people, and then people weren't returning them because that was their model, and they're like, "Oh my God, how are we gonna?" But they kept seeing market adoption, but people kept not returning them, and so they had to just sort of scale through, to hit this critical mass, and then it took off. But in 2023, only 19% of legal professionals have used AI, but by 2024, that number was 79%. So we're seeing an enormous market adoption curve, much like streaming did when it first took off. And that's the fastest adoption curve in the history of legal technology, right? Because cloud computing in the legal industry took like 8 years to be widely adopted from Clio's first inception around 2008. That took them until about 2015 to achieve true adoption and dominance. The average lawyer bills just 2.6 hours of an 8-hour workday. 5 hours a day is gone to admin, chasing information, bad data hygiene, tasks that existing technology can handle. Clio's latest legal trends report found that growing firms doubled revenue with only 50% more clients by automating at 3 times the rate of their shrinking competitors, which is to say, utilization greatly increased on the same customer base. If your competitor figures out automation before you do, your cost structure becomes uncompetitive because there's simply no way to parallel your business. Like Blockbuster. And you may not feel it for 2 or 3 years until it's too late and the noose closes around your neck. Darin, talk to us about your experience.
Well, look, and if you think that we're saying that your firm is potentially like Blockbuster, you're right. But it's not too late. Don't be like that, right? Because actually I think it's a lot worse for small law firms, right? Larger practices are adopting tech. They've got a bigger infrastructure. I think it's like twice as much. What did I read? They are adapting new tech at double the rate, 39% versus 20%, right? Consumers are also using AI to find lawyers instead of calling them, right? There's an industry expert who put it very succinctly. You don't know every time your phone doesn't ring. It's real, right? Look, the point of this is erosion is invisible until it's catastrophic, like Blockbuster. It was true for them. And I think the data suggests it's true for a lot of small law firms. The
Mhm.
phone isn't ringing for them as much either. They just don't know it, you know? So, look, if this makes you think about your own firm, that's kind of the point, right? That's what we're here for. Subscribe to Firm Factor. We publish episodes about the business of growing and managing your law firm and knowledge that actually moves the needle.
Like and follow the show if you're enjoying it, and we'll be right back. Support for the show comes from LegalRev. They don't just market law firms, they grow them. With smart SEO, Google Ads, web design, and AI-ready search strategies, they make sure your next client finds you first. If you're ready to win online, go to LegalRev.com/factor. That's LegalRev.com/factor. And now to continue the conversation. Technology adoption is a great story because 2.5 years ago, we were the first law firm in the state of Washington. I know this because our Microsoft rep told us this, that when Microsoft bifurcated their VoIP phone system and their texting functionality, because before you couldn't host texting functionality on a Microsoft Teams phone, hosted phone, right?
Right.
Microsoft enabled that. And that same week we came to you guys and we were like, get us the ability to text all our clients native. Right. And you were and you guys were rightly were like, no one's ever asked us that before. And I'm like, that's because Microsoft just enabled it. There's no chance, no one else has done this before either. And
Right.
that cost us a pretty penny because we had to figure out, how does this integrate into our CRM? How does this talk to Clio? How do we use it? Now we got to find a host for it. And Mr. Hemmett at the time asked me, why on earth are no one's going to text their attorney? Who's going to text their attorney? This is silly. And then that went on to make us, we estimate somewhere around $700,000 to $1 million incremental extra revenue because we could reach people, busy mothers and fathers at work, faster than our competitors could, who at the time could only email you or text. No one or email you or call. No one answers their phone at work, and no one reads their emails, period.
No.
So text
No, it's
is
so
the only
true.
way.
Look, I mean, the whole idea of, adoption of new technology and being ahead of the curve. I mean, I preach this constantly to our clients. And the people who have come to us are looking for things that will improve it and things that will change. The firms that are more successful are not the ones that come to us and hope that they can give us some money and we're going to make them rich. They're the ones that come to us and say, what can we do? How do we do this? How do we work with an agency like yours to help grow my firm? And, often it involves technology, like the ways that we've worked with you, with Clio and HubSpot. Look, let's talk about some of the myths around technology. First of all, 15 years, almost 16 years I've been doing this. I can tell you it's rarely as simple as they're scared of change, right? It's not fear, it's something different. And there's a variety of excuses that come up over and over for why they don't want to do something or why they haven't done it yet. One of the most common ones that we've seen is we've tried it, but it didn't work, right? We tried that, it didn't work years ago. Google ads or review generation or some of the things that can move the needle for quickly for marketing. And I think the thing to learn is that you didn't fail at tech, you failed at implementation of the tech, right? It actually requires involvement and attention to do. So failing and implementation are two different things. The ABA's legal tech survey in 2024, they asked attorneys why they weren't using advanced tools available to them. And the number one answer was not the cost or the reliability. 76% of them said they didn't know the tools well enough to use them.
The trust gap.
Right? Right. And I think that's probably the most common is I don't understand it, so I don't want to use it. Look, attorneys are fact-based people, and they're professional skeptics, right? I tell this to my team all the time. They are looking for why something is not going to work or not accurate or not true. They have to make that jump and take some risk, right? implementation is not about buying the shiniest tool. It's about taking the time to train your team to use it right. And you know this, especially with Thyme, right? Grabbing Thyme as a tool is not going to solve your problems if you don't implement it, practice why, and you don't teach people how to use it, right? Look, Blockbuster tried, they did an online DVD service as well, but it was tied to their brick and mortar stores and it just didn't work, right? It was too little, too late.
I,
Don't
I
be in
think
that group.
I think it's so interesting because the concept of change champions, which I know is the most corporate coded word on the planet, but the analogy is apt. Is that whenever I want to do something new, I find ideally one person in admin, one attorney, and one paralegal, and I
Mhm.
get those three people in the room with me, and I'm like, hey guys. First, here's the problem I'm trying to solve. I make it utility focused. What's the problem we're trying to solve? Two, how will this specific solution benefit you guys? And three, I always end the meeting by asking earnestly, not a rhetorical question, will you guys help me, introduce this to the team? Like, are you guys comfortable to put your name on this? And if the answer is yes at that initial meeting, we've never had an adoption curve fail.
Mm.
Usually it's when we skip that question and we just announce a new program without any sort of, you know,
Yeah, and assuming that everybody's just gonna do it because
yeah,
it's the
just
new
gonna
thing,
do
but
it.
people will resist change. I mean, for sure. Inertia is a really powerful force. But
Yeah.
if you get people on board, I mean, there's all kinds of stories about getting the right people on board to then implement something. I think that's key. That's smart strategy. I might actually, remember that for my own company.
Well, and when I was in for my MBA, I had an entire seminar just about how to champion
Mm.
change in a workplace, and according to the latest research from just about 2 years ago, maybe there's new research now, is that the statistically most likely, like, most successful change champion is actually a mix of genders. So if you can get one woman and one
Hmm,
man on board with a change, that is the biggest single determining factor in parallel to communication.
that's
So the
interesting.
the the visuals of the messenger actually appreciably makes a difference in a
For
clinical
sure,
setting, which is
for
so
sure.
interesting. But
Yeah.
Darin, I have a question. Have you heard the excuse, like, our clients are old school, they don't want this? Like, our clients don't want this?
Yeah, of
Like,
course.
what are your thoughts
I
about,
hear it
like,
from my team all the time, our clients don't want this, and, we have to try to explain to them that this is going to benefit you, and you have to take that risk and that jump, and then you will see it, right? I mean, if you never take a risk, you're never gonna gain anything. So,
well,
it's
I
not
mean,
that they're old school. It's that I think, you know, uh, clients are not, old school, and I will tell you, your next clients are absolutely not.
yep,
Right? The next generation is not. They're going to adopt AI. They're going to use these tools. There was a report that you had mentioned that also said that 70% of legal consumers prefer to work with firms that use AI or they have no preference, right?
yep.
It was like 46% the year before. So people are adopting this, right?
We'll be right back. Support for the show comes from Thyme. Thyme captures every billable email on cases and turns them into client-friendly time entry descriptions completely hands-free. No more lost time, no more pre-billing reviews, just up to 30% more revenue. Get a free demo at thyme.org/factor. That's thyme.org/factor. And what's so interesting is when I've taken great care when asking my team what would be helpful for them, but I have never once asked a client what they want when it comes to new tools, right? Because the context of how clients communicate with us
Mhm.
is cemented in how things have been done before. So there's retro bias,
Exactly.
right? So it's like, so your attorney, you'd never text your attorney, so why would I ask for it's a vicious cycle. Like, why would I ask to be able to text my attorney because no one's ever done it before? Because so why would I text? And so around and
Mhm.
around you go. So instead, the question we ask is, does this get clients closer? Does this new tool or widget or MacGuffin get clients closer to the information, speed, or quality they want? Because those they
Mhm.
do want, right?
That's
And
all
and
that
it's
really matters at the end of the day.
yeah, and it's our the onus is on us as the legal operators and professionals to exercise our judgment to get clients close to that, right? Which leads me to the next one, which is to say, oh, we're a boutique, personal touch matters. And I want to comment on this excuse, like, oh, we don't want to use technology because not having a human do everything means that somehow the service is worse. And look, we've cited
It's
these
missing
numbers
the
before.
point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we've cited these numbers before, and we'll probably cite them again. Clio's secret shopper study found that only 33% of law firms responded to emails, and we actually co commissioned our own secret shopping study, last year from the same research firm, and our results in Washington specifically are almost identical. 70% of everyone did not get back to any form of communication. And
Mhm.
48% were essentially unreachable by phone in any volume, right? And 73% of secret shoppers said they would not recommend the firms they contacted, which goes right back to your initial point, which is to say negative word of mouth is devastating and it is always invisible because it's measured in the times the phone did not ring.
Yeah,
And that's not a personal touch.
73%, an industry that has 73% of people saying they wouldn't recommend the firms, that's a crisis. That's not a number to skip over, right? Look, tech does not have to kill the relationship. It can free up time to deliver it
Mhm.
better, right? So you use the tools you can to do your job better and more efficiently so that you can spend more time, so that you can answer emails, so you can answer the phone. I mean, my clients in general are more responsive. They do mostly answer the phone, but I would say 10% of the calls go unanswered.
Oh
In the
yeah.
middle of the day, that to me, that's leaving money on the table. Like, you get
Yeah.
a cheap receptionist service, and I mean, what's a new client worth? They're gonna go somewhere else if you don't answer the phone.
And similarly, same day appointments. This isn't quite legal technology
Mhm.
adjacent, but for us, particularly in a crisis B2C industry like family law, if you are not offering as close to same day appointments as possible, every day are that you make a client wait, conversions reduced by about 17%.
I think that's
In a
a technology thing though, right? Because what it does is it requires you to have an integrated calendar system that's connected to people
Yep,
so that if somebody schedules a call for 4 hours from now, somebody's gonna know and they're gonna be available,
yep,
right? Anybody can just put up a calendar and that people can schedule appointments, but somebody's gotta be there,
yeah.
right? And you need that technology to make those connections
And we got pushed
correctly.
off of Clio Grow. We use Clio Manage, and I stand
Mhm,
by that, but we got pushed off of Clio Grow fundamentally because they did not offer round robin scheduling. Right?
mhm.
CleoGrow allows you to schedule paid consultations. You got to charge because your goal isn't meetings, your goal is clients. And unless
I'm
you're
a
in a
believer in that.
yeah, unless you're a contingency practice, you want to have some modest filter. Usually, we do $100 and then refund it if they hire us, so it stays accessible. But, anyways, you can schedule those appointments on Clio Grow integrated with your calendar, but you can't have multiple people on the same calendar. So what we would end up happening is we'd have like 5 options that a client would have to sift through to find the most recent availability,
That's too much
and they just
friction.
wouldn't do that because they're domestic violence victims, and who wants to spend 3 minutes sifting through a
No.
mobile calendar? So we've switched to HubSpot because that allows you to get everyone on one calendar that's unified, and then they just pick the soonest time, and whoever that was on the calendar gets the meeting. It's fantastic.
Sure.
Um,
Well, I'm a HubSpot evangelist. We've
oh
been
yeah.
a HubSpot partner for years and years.
And that
Uh,
that brings us to but that had a cost. And that brings us to the next excuse.
HubSpot's really expensive,
Yeah, it's too
right?
expensive. That's what people always say. Clio starts at $49 a month. Many firms spend more than that. I spend more than that on printer toner and a coffee budget alone. And
Mhm.
but and that's reflected in industry trends that law firms have increased software spending by 20% annually for over a decade, and it pays off though. Firms that added online content intake tools saw 51% more client leads and 52% higher revenue. And I also want to give a shout out to people with intake forms that are AI agent accessible, which will become more and more important over the next 5 years.
Absolutely. That's a side topic, but we've been developing a plugin for integration with LLMs to be able to schedule appointments directly with our clients. So we haven't rolled it out yet, but I will let you know. Look, the question is not about the price, right? It's not about can you afford it. It's, can you afford not to?
Mm.
Right? I mean, which is cliche, but it's really true. You need to be looking at the tools available that help your firm be more efficient, right?
Mhm.
Your competitors are using them, right? And if they're pulling ahead of you by 50% in lead generation, you're losing, right? It's not about $100 or $200. HubSpot is expensive, but basic HubSpot tools are affordable, right? It only gets expensive at scale and when you get more sophisticated.
And
Um,
also, opportunity cost, right? The
Absolutely.
question I never ask is, "What does this cost?" I said, "What does this get us?" Right? Because if
Mhm,
we have a biller who's billing $600 an hour, spending 5 hours or, 2 hours a week on X task that we can
mhm.
eliminate or reduce, that's 1,200. We're essentially paying $1,200 to do it worse right now, right? And so if something costs me $600 a month to do that, that's still 50% savings. It's just expressed differently because there's no difference, from an accounting basis, there's no difference between not billing an hour and paying that hour in fees. There's no difference to your
Amen.
bottom line. And so I
I
think so many
couldn't
attorneys
agree more.
forget this and they just look at the dollar and they're like, "Oh, I'm staying as lean as possible." And I'm like, "Well, your lean as possible sucks because because you're so lean, you don't have any capabilities to connect with your client, to draft things quickly, to provide good service, to whatever it may be."
You
You
can have a restaurant that only serves like one small thing.
Yeah,
Great. You're really lean. You have no overhead costs and it's cold. You don't even have to heat it up. Well, that's great, but you're
no one's
really
gonna eat there.
limiting your opportunities there because some people like hot food and a few things on the menu. So, look, I think the real problem is not specifically the cost. It's that a lot of firms pay for software that nobody uses,
Yeah,
right? And that's a big loss, right? Other ones burn, 10 hours a week on something that a $20 app could do in minutes, right? So it's about knowing what you're doing. And there are plenty of firms that are doing both, right? That
I
are
know a few.
paying for software nobody uses and wasting time that software could have solved, right? You know, there's a simple way to calculate what the waste is costing you,
Mhm.
right? We're going to talk about this later. Um, I would say at the end of the day, none of the objections are really about technology, right? They're about risk tolerance. If you are comfortable with some risk, you need to identify what is it? Are you comfortable with adopting it or are you comfortable with falling behind? Both of those are a risk. One has an upside.
I mean,
That's
I
it in a
think
nutshell.
lessons to live by.